was thinking about my experience in sex ed, like through like junior high and high school. And I think it's actually quite common in like in spaces where like a lot of students like get access to that kind of education to not actually have like assigned sex educators in those sessions. Like in my experience, like junior high was literally just assigning like, in one case, the math teacher, which is a bad idea. But in a lot of cases, like gym teachers, like home ec teachers, to be like, okay, like here's a folder with like a bunch of ideas on like sex and sexuality, and like good luck discussing that. And so like my earliest memories of like sexual health and education in school were like, some of these teachers like couldn't even like name body parts correctly without going bright red or laughing. And so like if we can't have like anatomically correct conversations about like our own bodies, then like how are we really going to have like open, clear education and guidance? And I think about this a lot in like work at Maggie's and like doing a lot of work with sex workers and talking to sex workers across different industries. And you know, given like the state, I'm sure that like sexual health and education has improved a lot since the time I was in junior high or high school, which wasn't actually that long ago, not that old. But you know, I still think that for a lot of young people, a lot of young queer people especially, because if you're getting like just the general curriculum on sexual health education, like we're not even talking about what it is to be queer or trans, non-binary, two-spirit. We're not even having that conversation in those modules. And so I don't think it's particularly shocking then that like a lot of people get their education on like sex and sexuality from porn, right? And if you think about a lot of like the mainstream like porn companies and like filming studios and stuff like that, the most, like honestly, like shout out to porn performers, like it's an important, like it's a great job, it's important work, but like even a lot of sex workers in porn and across industries will tell you that like this isn't material it's meant to be like the first point of contact or education on like sexual health and sexual wellness. And like if anything, different forms of like fetish and boundary pushing that introduce different forms of like pain, for example, and this concept of pain being pleasure, like I would argue those are like actually highly advanced areas that should come after people have like a foundational sense of like how to navigate basic forms of like consent and like checking in with partners. And you know, in a lot of like mainstream sexual health and sex ed classes, like one, we're not having like anatomically correct conversations about our own bodies, one, let alone like nuanced discussion around like gender and sex and identity. But we do talk a lot about like pain or like in junior high, like no touch zones, but you don't actually talk about like pleasure a lot. And so like it's so fascinating. Like I'd love to talk more to like sex workers across different fields about like the kinds of conversations and like experiences they have, because and like I've often found that like sex workers tend to be a space of like education and guidance for people that are actually looking to explore sexuality in different ways. And like one of the things that comes up a lot is just like not understanding basic principles of like how to check in with your partner, how to ask about someone's boundaries, how to assess like facial expressions, how someone's speaking to you, how someone's moving, or even just like to come out and ask someone about their own boundaries.